Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're anything like me, you've had that moment.
Yeah.
Standing frozen in the grocery store aisle, right? Watching all your healthy eating intentions just kind of evaporate as you start comparing prices. You've got this vision of a beautiful basket full of nutrient-dense stuff, the organic this, the fresh cut that. And then you realize, wow, eating well feels almost like this exclusive club, priced way out of reach for most people. It really feels like your health goals in your bank account are just fundamentally at odds.
It's a huge modern paradox, isn't it? And honestly, it feels engineered that way sometimes. But here's the really key insight we found digging into our source material. True, lasting wellness. It's not hiding in those expensive packages or fancy imported supplements or, the trendy high-margin superfoods. It's actually found in really simple, intentional choices.
Yeah.
And this is crucial viewing your shopping basket not just as like a list of expenses you have to pay, but as a direct reflection of what you value for your long-term health.
Okay, let's really unpack that shift, because that's what this deep dive is all about, finding that harmony between feeling genuinely vital and, well, managing your budget. We're here to show that eating well on a budget isn't about sacrifice. It's actually liberation. We want to lay out the roadmap to stop shopping cheap, where you sacrifice nutrition just for the lowest price and start shopping smart.
Exactly. And that mindset adjustment, it's absolutely foundational. It's the first step.
Yeah.
If your only goal is the lowest possible price, you inevitably end up with, well, fillers, lots of sugar, processed items, and you completely ignore the long-term impact on your energy, your focus, your overall health. Being smart, on the other hand, means prioritizing value.
Okay, so how do we actually figure out what value means in the grocery store?
Yeah.
Because it clearly can't just be the number on the price tag.
Right. It's about the sustained benefit you get versus the cost. We need to stop thinking purely in cost per pound or cost per item and start thinking in cost per, let's say, serving of satiety. Like, how much genuine nourishment and sustained energy does this food provide for the lowest possible input? Think about a simple example. A cheap bag of, refined snack crackers might seem half the price of a bag of dried lentils initially, but those crackers, they'll leave you hungry pretty quickly, probably spike your blood sugar, and you'll need to buy something else sooner. The lentils, though, provide iron, fiber, protein that keep you fueled for hours. Their long-term value is just infinitely higher, even if they look a tiny bit more expensive right there on the shelf.
That completely reframes the whole equation.
Yeah.
Okay, so if value is a goal, what are those nutrient-dense staples, the ones that form the bedrock of this budget wellness approach?
Yeah, you want to build your meals around things that are inherently affordable and incredibly versatile. Number one, whole grains. Simple things like plain oats, brown rice, maybe quinoa. They cost pennies per serving and they can anchor breakfast, lunch, or dinner super flexible. Number two, legumes. Think lentils, beans, chickpeas. They are absolute protein powerhouses. You can get them dried or canned, and the affordability is just unmatched. And finally, don't overlook the freezer aisle. Frozen fruits and vegetables are flash frozen right at peak freshness. That means they're often just as nutritious, sometimes even more nutritious than fresh produce that's traveled for weeks to get to the store. Plus, they cut down on waste because you only use what you need, and they're usually cheaper.
Okay, that sounds like a really powerful toolkit. But I know what some listeners are thinking right now. Okay, great, I buy those things sometimes, but I still end up with a really expensive cart total and, honestly, food waste.
No.
And this is where the sources tell us the healthy shopping journey doesn't actually begin when you walk into the store, does it?
Absolutely not. No way. Planning, that's the great unsung hero of budget wellness. It truly is. Without some kind of roadmap, that shopping trip, it becomes stressful, it gets expensive fast, and it's purely driven by impulse buys, especially if you shop when you're hungry. Planning transforms all that chaos into like a calm, efficient, much more mindful experience where you actually feel in control.
But I have to push back just a little bit here, because meal planning can feel so rigid sometimes. Life happens, schedules go sideways, and the second a plan gets disrupted, a lot of people just abandon the whole thing. Do the sources suggest you just toss the plan out the window then? Or is there like a flexible buffer built into the strategy?
That's a really crucial distinction. Yeah, rigidity definitely leads to failure. We're not aiming for that. The goal is a roadmap, right? Not some fixed, unchangeable itinerary. The sources actually suggest building in flexibility, maybe having a plan B meal that uses only non-perishables like pasta and canned tomatoes for those nights when you get home super late or things go off track. But the planning process itself, it really involves 3 non-negotiable steps.
Okay, lay out the roadmap for us.
All right. Step one is meal planning. Just map out maybe 4 or 5 specific dinners for the week. This tackles that agonizing what's for dinner question every single night and dramatically cuts down on expensive takeout or those last-minute impulse buys at the store. And the real secret weapon here is focusing on batch cooking, making, say, a big pot of quinoa or roasting a bunch of vegetables that you can then repurpose in different meals throughout the week.
Okay, step 2 is the pantry check. And this is critical because, honestly, I have definitely found that forgotten bag of black beans I swore I didn't have lurking in the back.
Oh, we all have, totally. Before you write a single thing down on your list, check for those forgotten staples. Rice, spices, canned goods, pasta. They're basically free meal starters sitting right there. This stops you from buying duplicates, and it's a key step in just being resourceful. You're essentially doing an inventory of your hidden food capital.
And the final step sounds simple, but maybe powerful. Writing a simple, categorized list, and then actually sticking to it. Treating it the gospel, you said.
Precisely. Gospel might be strong, but treat it as your guide. Categorize it by store section produce, grains, protein, dairy, whatever makes sense for your store layout. This list, it's your ally. It's your defense mechanism against all the temptations in the store. It prevents you from being swayed by clever marketing or those sudden cravings for things you don't need. It helps you maintain control, ensuring you only spend on the ingredients you need for the value you already decided on back home.
Okay, so now we have our defense, the list. Let's actually get into the store and look at some specific cost-saving swaps. Strategy A starts with what feels like an easy win, choosing store brands and focusing on whole foods.
Absolutely. For most of those common staples we talked about, oats, rice, pasta, canned beans, frozen vegetables, the store brands are generics. They often meet, sometimes even exceed, the quality of the big name brand versions, but they cost significantly less. You're essentially just paying extra for the fancy label, the marketing budget, and the prime shelf placement of the name brand. Skip the glamour, go straight for the value.
And strategy A also includes the power of buying whole. And the example of buying a whole chicken instead of pre-cut pieces, this is where some real deep dive detail comes in, right? It takes more effort, but the payoff is huge.
Oh, this is where you really leverage a little bit of your time to save money and engage in true resourcefulness. It's quite satisfying, actually. A whole chicken, which you can often buy pretty affordably, yields several things. First, the primary meat, right? The breasts, thighs, legs, enough for maybe 2 or 3 different meals. Then you've got the skin and the fat. Don't toss it. You can render that down for incredibly flavorful cooking fat, replacing expensive butter or oil in other dishes. And maybe most importantly, the carcass and bones.
Things you would normally just throw straight in the bin.
Exactly. But those bones, they are the base for incredibly nutrient-dense, flavorful broth or stock. Absolutely free. So you're maximizing the value of every single bit of protein you purchased, ensuring basically zero waste, and creating this essential cooking ingredient that would cost you a premium if you bought it pre-made in a carton. This whole process really encourages creativity in the kitchen and teaches you to respect every part of the food.
Okay, moving on. Strategy B seems to align your shopping with nature's rhythm. Shopping seasonally and locally. This sounds like common sense, maybe, but what's the surprising benefit here? What are we missing?
Well, the benefit is really twofold. It hits both price and nutritional quality. When a food is in season in your region, the supply is naturally abundant, transportation costs are way lower, and the need for long-term, energy-intensive storage is eliminated. All that translates directly to drastically lower prices for you, those imported berries in the middle of winter. They carry a massive hidden cost related to fuel, refrigeration, and preventing spoilage. Plus, food that's picked at its peak season is usually at its absolute peak nutritional density. So you're literally getting more nutritional bang for your buck.
And supporting local markets or maybe community-supported agriculture, CSAs, often helps cut out a lot of that supply chain complexity entirely, right?
Correct. You often get much better prices because you're bypassing several middlemen in that chain. And bonus, you're inherently supporting farming practices that are often more focused on sustainability and soil health rather than just mass market logistics and shelf stability. This connection to the seasons also naturally encourages variety in your diet. It kind of forces you to change your cooking habits based on what's actually available and fresh, which in turn naturally reduces the temptation to rely on those expensive, often processed, year-round commodities.
Okay, strategy C brings us to bulk buying. We know that for staples like oats, lentils, nuts, or beans, buying in bulk can save significant money per unit. And time too, fewer trips. It feels like a guaranteed money saver. But you stress the need to buy smartly. What's the catch?
That is the crucial caveat, yes. Smartly. Because abundance can turn into waste incredibly quickly if items expire or go stale before you actually use them. We really have to dispel this myth that bulk buying is always the smart move. It isn't. If you buy, say, a giant 5-pound bag of some niche grain that you only use in one specific recipe once a month, you are very likely going to end up throwing half it away. That's not saving money.
So thinking about this intentional approach, what are the specific kinds of items we should maybe avoid buying in bulk?
Right. Definitely don't bulk buy anything highly perishable like fresh produce unless you have a very concrete plan to process and freeze it almost immediately. And be really cautious with specialty items. Things like spices, dried herbs, specific types of flour, even some nuts and seeds. These items lose their potency and freshness over time, sometimes faster than you'd think. Wise bulk buying requires you to, first, honestly assess your storage space. Second, realistically estimate your household's consumption rate. How fast will you actually use this? And third, and this is key, connect those estimates directly back to your meal plan. Ensure every ounce you buy has a purpose and will likely be utilized before it loses its value or spoils.
Okay, so that list we made earlier, that's our primary line of defense against impulse buys. But the moment we actually walk into the store, we are basically entering this maze of marketing that's specifically designed to override our carefully laid plans.
Precisely. You have your defense, but the store is running an offense against your list. It's how they're set up. They use psychological placement. The most expensive, highest margin items are always right there at eye level. The end caps are full of impulse buys. And those center aisles, they're often designed to funnel you towards more processed foods with really flashy, expensive-looking labels promising all sorts of benefits.
Yeah, you've got buzzwords plastered everywhere: organic, keto, paleo, gluten-free, superfood, you name it. And they almost always come with a premium price tag, often masking foods that are still highly processed, just marketed differently.
And that is exactly where your list gives you the power to just look beyond all that hype. You have to train yourself to look past the fancy label design and actually read the ingredient list on the back. The sources constantly remind us that often a simple bag of plain oats or, a humble bunch of carrots delivers far more genuine nourishment than some pricey processed snack bar that's shouting superfood on the front label. We often end up paying a huge premium for convenience, mistakenly believing we're paying solely for health benefits.
That leads perfectly into that really powerful empowerment question the sources suggest we ask ourselves, right there in the aisle, holding the item. Does this item genuinely nourish my body in a meaningful way? Or am I mostly just paying for a trendy label and the convenience tax?
Yes. Asking that simple question cuts through so much of the noise that marketers have spent millions creating. Affordable wellness truly comes from simplicity and intention. It doesn't come from constantly chasing expensive, fleeting food trends. The moment you decide to focus on real, whole ingredients, the building blocks, you start to reclaim control of both your health and your finances. It's incredibly empowering.
We talked a lot about what actually goes into the shopping basket, but our final section now transitions to what happens once you get home. How your habits in the kitchen actually extend both your budget and your health goals. It turns out that reducing food waste is one of the most significant budget hacks available, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's huge. And it's more than just saving money. It becomes an act of gratitude, really. Conscious living, every ingredient you bought has value, financial value, nutritional value, environmental value, and we need to learn to respect that. This is where resourcefulness stops feeling like deprivation and actually becomes kind of joyful. We're not just trying to pinch pennies, we're trying to find creativity in using every little scrap.
Okay, so give us the deep dive on these resource recipes. What are some really practical steps for utilizing parts of food we might normally just discard without a second thought?
Well, beyond the chicken carcass we mentioned for making broth, think about vegetable scraps, those bunion peels, the ends of carrots, tough celery leaves, mushroom stems. Instead of tossing them or even composting them immediately, keep a bag or container in your freezer. Just keep adding those scraps. Once the bag is full, simmer them all in water for an hour to strain it, and you have this incredibly deep, flavorful vegetable broth base. For free. That's pure value creation, literally turning potential trash into culinary gold.
What about other parts of vegetables that often get wasted? Like maybe the tough stems of greens like kale or broccoli.
Use them. Absolutely. Those tough stems, just slice them thinly. They can be added to stir fries, roasted right alongside the florets, or even pickled. They have lots of nutrients. And don't discard the water you use to boil vegetables like potatoes or beans. Let it cool and use that mineral-rich water as a base for cooking rice or adding to soups. And bread. If bread goes a bit stale, don't warn it. Cube it up, Toss it with a little olive oil and some herbs or spices and bake them into high-quality croutons. Way better than store-bought. Or use stale bread for things like panzanella salad or French toast.
And if you genuinely can't get to everything in time, maybe you bought too much seasonal fruit and it's about to turn.
Freeze it immediately. Don't wait. Overripe bananas. Slice them up, freeze them flat on a tray, then bag them perfect for smoothies. Leftover tomato paste from a can. Freeze it in ice cube trays and tablespoon portions. Cooked meals you made too much of. Freeze them for future lunches. Even things like bread and some cheeses can be frozen successfully to enjoy later without really losing flavor or nutrition. This whole conscious approach teaches the ultimate lesson, I think. Eating well on a budget isn't just about spending less money up front at the store. It's really about respecting everything you bring into your kitchen and finding genuine satisfaction and joy in that resourcefulness all week long.
Wow. This has been such a comprehensive, really practical dive into intentional shopping, planning, and then the follow-through in the kitchen. So as we start to wrap up here, what's the ultimate synthesis, the main takeaway we really need to carry with us from all this?
I think the ultimate takeaway is that healthy shopping, healthy eating on a budget, it's fundamentally about intention, not about restriction or deprivation. Every single time you choose to cook a meal at home instead of ordering out, every time you plan before you shop, every time you really savor that seasonal produce, you are making a direct investment in your long-term vitality, yes, but also in your peace of mind. True health isn't some magic bullet. It's the consistent result of these small, mindful actions that genuinely affirm your values day after day.
That brings us right back to that powerful concluding thought we pulled from the sources. Simplicity really is the new luxury. Wellness isn't some elite commodity that's reserved only for the wealthy few. It's a lifestyle choice available to everyone. And it really begins the moment you approach your shopping basket, your kitchen, your meals with awareness and care.
And maybe let me leave you, our listener, with one final provocative thought to mull over this week. We've talked a lot about saving time and saving money through planning and mindful shopping. And those are tangible, quantifiable returns. You can see them. But consider the third, perhaps priceless resource you save. Your mental energy. How much focus, how much clarity, how much just sheer peace of mind do you actually gain throughout your week when you replace that shopping autopilot, those impulse buys, that low-level food panic, when you replace all that with clear intention and a flexible, reliable plan. That feeling of peace, that sense of control over both your body and your budget that arguably is the deepest, most valuable return on your mindful investment.